You stand at the base of a colossal stone structure, its weathered surfaces whispering of an age long past. The air is thick with the silence of centuries, and as you look up, a single, overwhelming question forms in your mind. What was this place for? There are no signs, no markers, no historical records that can offer a clear answer. This is the profound mystery that surrounds some of humanity's greatest architectural achievements, buildings of immense scale and ingenuity whose original purpose has been completely erased by time. These silent sentinels of stone and mortar hold their secrets close, challenging our understanding of the past and igniting a deep, burning curiosity. It's a feeling that transcends simple historical inquiry. It's a direct connection to the enigma of human ambition, a puzzle waiting to be solved. Today, we embark on a journey to unravel those puzzles. We are going to explore 25 of the world's most mysterious historical buildings, structures that continue to baffle the brightest archaeologists and historians. From hidden subterranean complexes to towering monuments aligned with the stars, these are not merely ruins. They are active crime scenes in the greatest cold case of all, the story of our own civilization. Each one represents a gap in our collective memory, a question mark carved in stone that has resisted all attempts at a definitive explanation. We will walk the same pathways as ancient builders whose intentions we can only guess at, and we will examine the fascinating, sometimes wild, theories that have been proposed to explain the unexplainable. This is more than a list. It is an expedition into the heart of architectural ambiguity. So prepare to have your perception of history challenged. We will venture across continents and millennia, delving into sites where the line between ritual and practicality blurs, where the functions we take for granted, a home, a temple, a tomb, no longer seem to apply. The journey ahead promises not just a catalogue of strange buildings, but a deeper appreciation for the limits of our knowledge and the enduring power of mystery. What you are about to discover will leave you in awe of the ancient world's complexity and wondering what other secrets are still buried, waiting for their story to be told. Let's begin. Our first stop takes us to the sun-scorched highlands of southeastern Turkey, where a discovery so profound it rewrote the very timeline of human civilization was made. Known as Göbekli Tepe, which translates to Potbelly Hill, this site doesn't look like much from a distance, but beneath the surface lies an archaeological bombshell. Unearthed in the 1990s by a German archaeologist named Klaus Schmidt, the true magnitude of what he found didn't become clear until the massive stone pillars began to emerge from the earth. These weren't just any stones, they were meticulously carved, towering monoliths arranged in great stone circles. The truly staggering part, carbon dating, has revealed that Göbekli Tepe is approximately 12,000 years old. To put that in perspective, this structure was already ancient when the first stones of Stonehenge were being raised, a full 6,000 years earlier. It predates the invention of pottery, the wheel, and even settled agriculture as we know it. This fact alone sent shockwaves through the archaeological community, forcing a complete re-evaluation of how complex societies began. The craftsmanship on display is breathtaking. Dozens of massive T-shaped limestone pillars, some weighing more than 10 tons, stand in concentric rings. Each pillar is a canvas covered in exquisite carvings of animals, foxes, scorpions, vultures, and lions, rendered with a skill that seems impossible for a society of hunter-gatherers, which is what we believed all humans were at that time. The central mystery of Göbekli Tepe is quite simply, what was it? There are no signs of permanent settlement nearby, no houses, no trash pits, no evidence that anyone lived there. This has led to the dominant theory that it was the world's first temple, a purely ritualistic or spiritual gathering place. The effort required to quarry, transport, and erect these pillars would have been monumental, suggesting a level of social organization and shared belief that experts never imagined for this era. But was it only a temple? Some researchers propose it might have been an ancient social center, a place where scattered bands of people would meet for trade, marriage alliances, and to share knowledge. The animal carvings could represent different clans or totems. Another, more speculative, theory suggests the site was an astronomical observatory with the pillars aligned to track celestial events. The mystery only deepens when we consider its end. Around 8000 BCE, for reasons we may never know, the people of Göbekli Tepe deliberately and carefully buried their entire monumental complex under tons of soil. They didn't abandon it, they entombed it. This act of preservation suggests the site held immense, perhaps sacred, significance, and they wanted to protect it for eternity. Why they felt the need to hide it from the world is a secret the hill has kept for 10,000 years, making Göbekli Tepe not just a collection of ruins but a deliberate, eternal enigma. From the ancient plains of Turkey, we journey northwest to a site whose iconic silhouette is known across the globe. Rising from the grassy expanse of Salisbury Plain in England, Stonehenge stands as the world's most famous and enduring architectural puzzle. This great circle of massive, weathered sarsen stones capped by imposing lintels is an image burned into our collective consciousness, yet its true purpose remains as shrouded in mist as the English landscape it inhabits. What appears at first glance to be a simple ring of stones is in fact a testament to almost superhuman determination and a complex blueprint that has fascinated scholars for centuries. The sheer scale of the endeavor is staggering. The largest of these sarsen stones weigh up to 25 tons each, and they were dragged, likely on wooden sledges, from quarries over 20 miles away. But even more astonishing is the origin of the smaller, blue stones that form the inner circle. Geological analysis has proven that these distinctive spotted dolerite rocks were transported all the way from the Preseli Hills in Wales, a distance of nearly 150 miles. Imagine the logistical nightmare for a Neolithic society, moving multi-ton blocks across rugged terrain, over rivers, and through dense forests without the wheel or draft animals. This Herculean effort alone suggests that Stonehenge was no ordinary construction. It was a project of immense cultural and spiritual significance, a place worthy of generations of backbreaking labor. This immense investment of effort fuels the central debate. What was it all for? The most prominent and compelling theory positions Stonehenge as a prehistoric astronomical observatory. The entire structure is meticulously aligned with the movements of the sun. On the summer solstice, the longest day of the year, the rising sun directly illuminates the center of the monument when viewed from the heel stone outside the circle. Similarly, the winter solstice sunset aligns with another key axis. These alignments are too precise to be coincidental, suggesting the builders possessed a sophisticated understanding of the solar cycle, using the stones to mark the changing seasons, which was critical for agriculture and ritual calendars. But the astronomical theory is just the beginning. Some archaeologists, pointing to the numerous human remains found buried in the surrounding area, argue that Stonehenge was primarily a sacred burial ground, a final resting place for a privileged elite. Others propose it was a place of pilgrimage and healing, akin to a Neolithic Lourdes. The blue stones from Wales were believed to have magical, curative properties, and people may have traveled great distances to chip off pieces of the rock for their supposed healing powers. There is also strong evidence for its use as a site for religious ceremonies, a unifying central place for scattered communities to gather for rituals that reinforced their shared beliefs and social bonds. The truth is, Stonehenge likely served multiple purposes over its 1500 years of construction and use: a calendar, a temple, a tomb, and a monument to communal identity, all rolled into one enigmatic stone circle. Its silence speaks volumes about the complexity of our ancient ancestors, whose intellectual and spiritual world we are still striving to comprehend. Leaving the windswept plains of England behind, we now turn our attention to a structure so immense, so perfect in its geometry, that it has captivated humanity for millennia. Standing proudly on the Giza Plateau for over 4,500 years, the Great Pyramid is the sole surviving wonder of the ancient world. While modern history largely accepts it was built as a tomb for the pharaoh Khufu around 2500 BCE, this basic classification feels almost insultingly simple when confronted with the sheer, mind-boggling reality of the monument. To call the Great Pyramid just a tomb is like calling the universe just a collection of stars. It misses the profound and intricate mysteries layered within every perfectly cut stone. The statistics alone are enough to induce vertigo. Originally soaring to a height of 481 feet, it was the tallest man-made structure in the world for an almost unthinkable 3,800 years. It is composed of an estimated 2.3 million individual blocks of limestone and granite, each weighing an average of 2.5 tons, with some of the granite beams in the internal chambers weighing up to a staggering 80 tons. But the true mystery isn't just its scale, it's the insane precision with which it was executed. The base of the pyramid is almost a perfect square, with its 4 sides aligned to the 4 cardinal directions with an error margin of just a fraction of a single degree. This alignment to true north is more accurate than that of the Royal Observatory in Greenwich, London, built thousands of years later. How did an ancient Bronze Age society achieve such geographical and astronomical exactitude? The tools they had, copper chisels, stone balls, and wooden levels, seem utterly inadequate for a task requiring this level of mathematical and engineering sophistication. This precision only deepens when we venture inside, away from the blazing Egyptian sun. The interior is a labyrinth of cold, silent passages and chambers that defy easy explanation. Most are familiar with the King's Chamber, the grand, granite-lined room that supposedly held Khufu's sarcophagus, but it is the other, less celebrated spaces that truly puzzle Egyptologists. Take the misnamed Queen's Chamber. Despite its elegant title, it was almost certainly never intended for a queen. It sits precisely in the center of the pyramid's north-south axis, and it contains a feature found nowhere else, a niche or alcove in the wall whose purpose is completely unknown. Was it for a statue of the pharaoh's Ka or spirit? Was it an architectural focal point for rituals we can no longer comprehend? Even more enigmatic are the so-called air shafts. From both the King's and Queen's chambers, narrow, square tunnels, only about 8 inches wide, slope upwards through the massive stone heart of the pyramid. For centuries, their function was a complete mystery. Recently, using robotics, explorers have discovered that the shafts from the King's Chamber break through to the outer surface, leading to the dominant theory that they were not for air at all, but rather star shafts, designed to align with specific celestial bodies like the constellation Orion, associated with the god Osiris, to allow the pharaoh's soul to ascend directly to the heavens. But the shafts from the Queen's Chamber are even stranger. They do not reach the outside. Instead, they terminate at small stone doors with copper handles, behind which robotic cameras have revealed more empty space and another door. What symbolic or practical purpose could these sealed, inaccessible tunnels possibly have served in the pharaoh's journey to the afterlife? All of these internal riddles lead back to the greatest, most persistent mystery of all. How was it built? The conventional theory involves massive ramps made of mud brick and earth, spiraling around the growing structure, upon which workers dragged the colossal stones. Yet the engineering challenges of such a ramp system are immense. The ramp itself would have required more material than the pyramid. Other theories propose internal, spiraling ramps or the use of water channels to float the blocks into position. But no single theory satisfactorily explains the speed of construction, estimated to be just 20 years, combined with the breathtaking accuracy. The Great Pyramid is not a haphazard pile of rocks. It is a precision instrument crafted on a gargantuan scale. It stands as a silent, defiant challenge from our ancient ancestors, a monument that continues to guard its most profound secrets about the true extent of human knowledge and capability in a world we are only beginning to understand. Yet while the Great Pyramid stands as a monument to the sun, our next destination is one designed to capture its light in a moment of breathtaking engineered perfection. Far to the north, in the rolling green landscape of Ireland's Boyne Valley, lies a massive circular mound that predates even the Egyptian wonders. This is Newgrange, a passage tomb constructed over 5,000 years ago, making it older than Stonehenge and the Great Pyramid of Giza. From the outside, it appears as a great grass-covered hill, surrounded by a circle of immense white quartz stones that glitter in the sun. But this serene exterior conceals an architectural marvel and a celestial secret that reveals the astonishing sophistication of its Neolithic builders. The construction of Newgrange is a masterpiece of Stone Age engineering. The most remarkable feature is its interior passage and chamber, built using a technique known as corbelling. This involves stacking flat stones in overlapping layers, each layer projecting slightly inward until the structure is capped by a single stone, creating a beehive-shaped vault. The genius of this design is that it is entirely self-supporting and, astoundingly, has remained completely waterproof for more than 5 millennia. Not a single drop of moisture has penetrated the inner sanctum since it was sealed in antiquity. This wasn't just a pile of rocks, it was a precision-built sanctuary designed to endure for eternity. But the true wonder of Newgrange is not just its enduring structure, but its profound connection to the cosmos. Above the entrance to the tomb is a small, square opening known as the roof box. For most of the year, this opening looks out onto nothing but darkness. But for a few precious days around the winter solstice, the shortest day of the year, something magical happens. As the sun rises, a narrow, precise beam of sunlight enters through this roof box. It travels down the 60-foot-long passageway, growing gradually wider until it floods the central chamber with a golden light for approximately 17 minutes. This event is not a happy accident. It is the result of meticulous planning and a deep understanding of solar cycles. The alignment had to account for the height of the sun, the angle of the passage, and the specific day, all calculated with Stone Age technology. This spectacular phenomenon lies at the heart of the mystery surrounding Newgrange's true purpose. While human remains have been found inside, leading to its classification as a passage tomb, many experts argue that it was far more than just a resting place for the dead. The immense effort required to achieve this solstice alignment suggests a powerful dual function. For an agrarian society whose survival depended on the seasons, the winter solstice marked a crucial turning point. The moment the sun began its return, promising the rebirth of spring and the renewal of life. Newgrange, therefore, may have served as a sophisticated astronomical observatory and a temple for powerful renewal rituals. The lighting of the chamber could have symbolized the triumph of light over darkness, life over death, with the spirits of the ancestors believed to be active participants in this cosmic drama. Was Newgrange a tomb that doubled as a solar instrument, a place where the cycles of human life and the heavens were intimately intertwined? This seamless blend of astronomy, architecture, and spirituality makes it one of the most intelligently designed and spiritually resonant mysteries of the ancient world. But from a monument designed to capture the sun, we now descend into a world of perpetual darkness, into the very heart of the earth itself. Deep beneath the fairy tale landscape of Cappadocia in Turkey, with its famous fairy chimney rock formations, lies a secret so vast it challenges our understanding of ancient urban life. This is Derinkuyu, an entire multi-level city carved not from stone, but from the region's soft, malleable volcanic tuff. The scale of this subterranean metropolis is almost incomprehensible. Discovered by chance in 1963 when a local man knocked down a wall in his basement and found a mysterious room behind it, subsequent excavations have revealed a labyrinthine complex reaching 18 stories deep. with estimates suggesting it could have housed up to 20,000 people along with their livestock and supplies. Walking through Derinkuyu is like stepping into a meticulously planned survival bunker from a science fiction novel, yet it was built over 1,000 years ago. The city is a marvel of underground engineering, containing everything a massive population would need to survive for months, completely isolated from the world above. There are living quarters, kitchens, stables for animals, cellars for food storage, churches with vaulted ceilings and crosses carved into the walls, wineries for pressing grapes, and even communal rooms that may have served as schools or meeting halls. All of this was connected by a complex network of narrow, twisting corridors, often requiring a person to bend over to pass through, a deliberate design feature to slow down any potential invaders. The air throughout this deep city remains fresh and breathable thanks to a brilliant ventilation system of over 50 sophisticated shafts that reach down to the lowest levels, providing air circulation and water from underground wells. This incredible complexity fuels the central debate about Derinkuyu's primary function. Was it a permanent home or a temporary refuge? The most widely accepted theory is that it served as a gigantic hiding place, a refuge for entire communities seeking shelter from waves of invaders that swept across the Anatolian plateau over the centuries. Its construction is often attributed to early Christians, perhaps as early as the 7th or 8th centuries, fleeing persecution from Arab raids or later from Mongol armies. The security features are undeniable evidence of a defensive mindset. Massive circular millstones, each weighing nearly half a ton, could be rolled across key passageways from the inside, effectively sealing entire sections of the city. These stone doors were designed so that they could only be operated from within, making the city nearly impregnable once the entrances were secured. Yet the presence of features like churches, wine presses, and extensive storage areas suggests this was more than just a panic room. It was a place designed for sustained living, for maintaining a semblance of society and culture even while in hiding. This leads to another fascinating possibility, that Derinkuyu was a religious sanctuary, a secret city for a minority faith to practice away from the eyes of conquerors. The layers of history are deep, with some archaeologists proposing that the earliest levels might have been carved by the Phrygians 1,000 years before the Common Era, and then expanded upon by later groups including early Christians and Byzantines. The mystery is not just who built it, but what kind of life was lived here. Were these dark, enclosed spaces a place of fear and survival, or did they become a place of community and resilience, a silent, stone-clad testament to the human will to endure against overwhelming odds? Derinkuyu offers no easy answers, presenting us instead with the ghost of an entire civilization that chose to live in the world's shadows, leaving behind an underground masterpiece whose full story remains buried in the silent volcanic rock. Yet as we contemplate the hidden world of Derinkuyu, we are reminded that ancient builders also sought to dominate the landscape above, creating fortifications that seem to defy both nature and their enemies. High in the Andes, perched on a steep hill overlooking the ancient Inca capital of Cusco, lies a structure so monumental it challenges our very understanding of stonecraft. This is Sacsayhuaman, a colossal complex whose zigzagging walls are composed of stones so enormous that the Spanish conquistadors, upon seeing them, could only conclude they had been built by giants or demons. The scale is breathtaking. Some of these limestone blocks are estimated to weigh between 100 and 200 tons, and they are stacked in 3 distinct, towering tiers that stretch for hundreds of meters across the hillside. The true marvel of Sacsayhuaman, however, lies not in its size but in its impossible precision. This is some of the finest examples of cyclopean masonry in the world. The stones are irregularly shaped polygons, yet they fit together with such seamless joints that it is said not even a single piece of paper can be slid between them. There is no mortar holding this puzzle together, The stability comes entirely from the masterful cutting and placement of each individual block, which interlock perfectly, distributing weight and making the walls incredibly resistant to the devastating earthquakes that frequently shake the region. The method used to achieve this perfection remains a profound mystery. How did Inca stonemasons, without iron tools or the wheel, quarry, transport, and shape these behemoths with such microscopic accuracy? The prevailing theory suggests they used harder stone hammers to pound the blocks into shape, patiently grinding the surfaces over generations until a perfect fit was achieved. The result is a wall that feels less like a construction and more like a single, organic piece of the mountain itself. This incredible effort fuels the enduring debate about the site's primary purpose. The most obvious theory, given its commanding strategic position and formidable defensive walls, is that it was a military fortress. The zigzag design of the walls would have allowed defenders to rain down projectiles on attackers from multiple angles, creating deadly crossfires. Historical accounts from the Spanish describe a fierce battle at Sacsayhuaman during their conquest, which seems to support this martial function. Yet, other evidence points in a different direction. The complex contained temples, including a circular tower base believed to have been dedicated to the sun god Inti, the most important deity in the Inca pantheon. This suggests a strong religious significance, potentially making Sacsayhuaman a major ceremonial center. The layout itself, when viewed from above, is said to resemble the head of a puma, with the city of Cusco forming its body, implying a deep symbolic and cosmological purpose woven into the very urban plan of the empire's heart. A third compelling theory proposes it was a royal estate, a place for the Sopa Inca, the emperor, to reside, administer his empire, and hold grand ceremonies that displayed his power and connection to the gods. It could have functioned as all three simultaneously: a fortress, a temple, and a palace, its roles shifting depending on the circumstance. The tragic reality is that the Spanish systematically dismantled much of the upper structures, using the stones to build their own colonial churches and houses in Cusco below. This destruction erased invaluable context, leaving only the indestructible foundation walls and a legacy of unanswered questions. Was Sacsayhuaman primarily a symbol of imperial power, a sacred axis mundi connecting earth and sky, or an impenetrable stronghold? Its silent, jagged walls, enduring centuries of earthquakes and invasion, offer no easy answer, standing as a monumental testament to an engineering genius whose full intentions have been lost to the ravages of history. From the towering stone walls of Sacsayhuaman, we now journey to a canvas of an entirely different scale, one so vast it can only be fully appreciated from the heavens. Etched into the stark, arid pampas of southern Peru, the Nazca lines represent one of archaeology's most beautiful and baffling riddles. These are not structures you can walk through or touch in a conventional sense. They are geoglyphs, gigantic designs created by removing the dark, sun-baked surface stones to reveal the lighter-colored sand beneath. The result is a series of hundreds of figures and lines that have survived for nearly 2,000 years, preserved by the region's unique, rainless climate. The sheer scope of this undertaking is staggering. The landscape is adorned with straight lines that run for miles, perfectly geometric shapes like trapezoids and triangles, and most famously, enormous depictions of animals and plants. There is a hummingbird with wings outstretched, a spider, a monkey with a spiraled tail, a killer whale, and a condor with a wingspan stretching nearly 400 feet. The paradox of the Nazca lines is that their true grandeur is invisible from the ground. To the people who made them, walking across the desert floor, these masterpieces would have appeared as nothing more than shallow grooves. Their full, breathtaking impact is only revealed from high above, raising the fundamental question that has perplexed researchers for decades: why create art that you can never see? The mystery begins with the how. The Nazca people, who flourished between 200 BC and 600 CE, possessed a sophisticated understanding of their environment, but they left behind no written records explaining their methods. Scholars believe the designs were laid out using simple surveying techniques, perhaps scaling up small models by using a grid system of stakes and ropes. The execution was straightforward but physically demanding. Laborers would have meticulously cleared the dark oxidized gravel to expose the lighter subsoil. The real enigma is not the technique but the motivation. What compelled an ancient culture to invest such immense, coordinated effort into a gallery that, from their perspective, was essentially abstract? The most long-standing and scientifically grounded theory proposes that the lines served a vital astronomical and calendrical function. Researchers like Maria Reich, a German mathematician who dedicated her life to studying the lines, argued that many of them point directly to the rising and setting positions of the sun, moon, and significant stars during solstices and equinoxes. In an agrarian society living in one of the driest places on Earth, tracking the celestial cycles to predict the arrival of life-giving water would have been a matter of survival. The lines could have functioned as a giant observatory, their alignments helping to mark dates for planting, harvesting, and religious ceremonies tied to the heavens. A more recent and compelling theory connects the lines directly to the most precious resource in the desert: water. The Nazca region is subject to occasional but devastating flooding from the Andes Mountains. Some researchers note that many of the figures and lines are located directly over subterranean aquifers and geological fault lines that channel water. The trapezoidal shapes, for instance, have been interpreted as ceremonial pathways leading to specific points where water would emerge. According to this view, the geoglyphs were not just art, they were a form of religious communication. By creating these massive offerings on the ground, the Nazca people may have been appealing to mountain deities or water spirits, performing rituals along the lines to ensure a steady flow of water and to prevent catastrophic floods. The animal figures could have represented specific clan totems or symbols associated with water and fertility. Then, of course, there is the theory that has captured the public imagination for generations, the ancient astronaut hypothesis. Popularized in the 1960s, this idea suggests the lines were landing strips or navigational markers for extraterrestrial spacecraft. Proponents point to the need for an aerial viewpoint as evidence that the Nazca had help from advanced beings. While this is a captivating story, mainstream archaeologists dismiss it, arguing that it underestimates the ingenuity of the Nazca culture. They point out that the lines can be, and were likely, appreciated from the surrounding foothills, and that the act of creation itself, the walking of the pathways in ritual processions, may have been more important than the final visual product. The true purpose of the Nazca lines likely lies in a combination of these ideas. They were probably a multifunctional sacred landscape, intertwining astronomy, hydrology, and religion. They were a way for a people to map their cosmos, plead with their gods, and leave an indelible mark of their identity upon the earth, a message written in stone and sand, whose full meaning vanished with the culture that so carefully inscribed it. Now we voyage across the vast expanse of the Pacific Ocean to one of the most isolated inhabited places on Earth, a tiny, triangular speck of land known as Rapa Nui or Easter Island. Here, scattered across the grassy slopes of dormant volcanoes, stand the silent, brooding moai. These are not merely stone heads as often depicted. They are towering, full-bodied statues, most buried up to their necks in sediment, with their full torsos and delicate hands carved in intricate detail. The scale of their creation is as staggering as their solemn, enigmatic presence. Nearly 1,000 of these figures were quarried, transported, and erected across the island, with the largest, named Paro, standing over 30 feet tall and weighing an astonishing 82 tons. The mystery of the moai is not just how this was accomplished by a Neolithic society, but more profoundly, why. What powerful force drove the islanders to dedicate centuries of labor to this singular, monumental task? The story of the moai begins at the volcanic quarry of Rono Raraku, a crater that served as the island's primary statue factory. Even today, the mountainside is a haunting gallery of nearly 400 figures in various stages of completion, some still attached to the bedrock, as if the workers simply walked away one day. The craftsmanship is remarkable. Using only stone hand tools called toki, master carvers would painstakingly chip away at the volcanic tuff, shaping the distinct, heavy-browed faces, long ears, and slender noses. Once a statue was freed, the real challenge began, moving it across miles of rugged, undulating terrain to its final ahu, or ceremonial platform. How they managed this feat remains a subject of intense debate. The traditional theory, supported by local oral history, suggests the moai were walked to their sites. Teams of rope pullers would rock the statue from side to side, edging it forward in a laborious, upright shuffle. Other experiments have shown they could have been transported horizontally on log sledges or rollers. Regardless of the method, the endeavor required a highly organized society with a surplus of food and a singular, unifying purpose. This immense investment of community resources lies at the heart of the mystery surrounding their function. The most widely accepted theory is that the moai were sacred representations of deified ancestors. In the Rapa Nui belief system, mana, or spiritual power, was a tangible force that could influence the living world. By carving a likeness of a powerful chief or lineage founder and placing it on an ahu platform facing inland, the community believed they could channel that ancestor's mana to protect and bless the village. The ahu platforms themselves were not simple foundations. They were intricate masonry-walled structures that often served as burial sites, reinforcing the connection between the statues and the ancestral realm. But the purpose may have been more complex and worldly. Another compelling perspective views the moai as ultimate symbols of political power and status in a competitive society. The island was divided among a dozen or more clans, and the size, quantity, and quality of a clan's moai were a direct reflection of its prestige and resources. This could explain the ever-increasing scale of the statues over time, as rival clans engaged in a kind of arms race of monumental sculpture, each trying to outdo the other. The transportation of the statues, a massive communal effort, would have reinforced social cohesion and demonstrated a chief's ability to command labor. A more recent and fascinating theory connects the moai to the island's most critical resource, freshwater. Easter Island has no permanent streams, and its freshwater supply comes primarily from underground aquifers that seep out along the coast. Researchers have noted a striking correlation. The locations of the major ahu platforms are consistently found near these coastal freshwater seeps. The statues, therefore, may have served as territorial markers, signaling control over and the sacred nature of these vital water sources. They were not just spiritual guardians, but practical declarations of a clan's claim to the very essence of life. This debate is overshadowed by the island's tragic collapse. At the peak of moai construction, the population may have reached 15,000, but by the time European explorers arrived in the 18th century, the society was in a state of decline, with many statues toppled. The prevailing narrative points to ecocide, the irreversible deforestation of the island to make way for agriculture and to provide rollers for transporting the moai, leading to soil erosion, loss of resources, and violent inter-clan warfare. The very statues that symbolized their power and unity may have contributed to their downfall. The silent moai, with their backs to the sea, stand as a powerful and haunting monument to human ambition, a stark reminder of how a society's greatest achievements can become intertwined with its most profound challenges. Our journey now takes us to the rugged coast of Brittany in northwestern France, where we encounter a mystery on a truly epic, almost geometric scale. This is the field of the Karnak stones, a sprawling megalithic complex that is less a single site and more an entire landscape transformed by human hands. Imagine standing before not just one circle of stones, but thousands of them, arranged in near-perfect parallel rows that stretch for over 4 kilometers, like a vast petrified army frozen in time. With more than 3,000 individual megaliths, the Karnak alignments represent the largest collection of standing stones anywhere in the world. The sheer organizational capacity required to plan and erect such a monumental arrangement is staggering, suggesting a society with a powerful, unified vision, a vision whose meaning has been completely lost to the ages. The site is traditionally divided into 3 major groupings: the Mainek, Kermario, and Kerleskan alignments. Each consists of dozens of parallel lines of standing stones or menhirs that march across the countryside. The stones themselves vary greatly in size, from small, manageable rocks to towering columns over 4 meters tall. What is immediately striking is the deliberate, purposeful nature of the layout. These are not randomly placed boulders. The rows are remarkably straight, and the stones are often spaced with a consistent rhythm, growing larger as you move from east to west within each section. This incredible precision over such a vast distance is the first clue that the builders were working towards a sophisticated goal far beyond simple territorial marking. The central question, of course, is what that goal was. The absence of any significant burial mounds or grave goods directly associated with the alignments makes a primary funerary purpose, like that of other megalithic sites, seem unlikely. Instead, theories have proliferated, each attempting to crack the code of this stone-built labyrinth. One of the most compelling scientific theories proposes that the Karnak stones functioned as a massive astronomical observatory. The alignments are carefully oriented to the rising and setting sun at the solstices, and some researchers suggest that specific sightlines between the stones could have been used to track the cycles of the moon, which was critically important for calibrating a lunar-based calendar. In an agrarian society, predicting the changing seasons with accuracy was a matter of survival, and this vast open-air computer could have been their most vital tool. A more speculative yet fascinating theory links the stones to seismic activity. The region of Brittany is geologically stable, but some researchers have wondered if the unique arrangement of the stones could have served as an ancient earthquake detector. The idea is that the long, straight rows, acting like giant levers, would have amplified even the slightest tremors from distant fault lines, making the stones vibrate or sway in a way that was perceptible to a trained observer. While this is difficult to prove, it speaks to the ingenuity of the theories inspired by this enigmatic site. Then there are the legends deeply woven into local folklore. The most popular tale claims that the stones are a Roman legion that was turned to stone by the wizard Merlin, thus saving Brittany from invasion. Another, older belief held that the alignments were a sacred site for the Druids, the priestly class of the Celtic peoples who arrived in the region thousands of years after the stones were erected. While modern archaeology has debunked any direct Druidic connection to the construction, it is highly probable that later cultures, including the Celts, recognized the powerful, sacred energy of the place and adopted it for their own rituals, adding another layer of mystery to its long history. The true purpose of the Karnak stones may never be singularly defined. They likely served multiple roles: an astronomical calculator, a place of seasonal gathering, and a profound expression of spiritual belief that transformed the very land into a temple without walls. Leaving the regimented rows of the Karnak stones behind, we now dive into a mystery that lies not on land but submerged beneath the waves. Off the southern coast of Yonaguni Island, the westernmost point of Japan, the ocean holds a secret that has divided scientists and sparked the imagination of explorers for decades. Known as the Yonaguni Monument, this massive underwater rock formation is a site that immediately challenges easy explanation. Discovered in 1986 by a local diver searching for new hammerhead shark observation points, the structure emerges from the seabed at a depth of about 80 feet. What he found was not a natural reef, but a series of breathtakingly geometric forms that look unmistakably like the ruins of an ancient, sunken city. The monument is colossal, measuring approximately 150 meters long, 40 meters wide, and rising 25 meters from the ocean floor. Its most striking features are the stark, clean lines that define it. There are what appear to be massive, flat terraces stacked like a giant staircase. There are sharp, 90-degree angles between walls and platforms that seem too perfect to be the work of random chance. One prominent feature looks like a grand, monolithic staircase with evenly spaced steps. Another resembles a wide, triangular archway, and there are straight, narrow channels that cut through the rock like paved roads. There is even a distinct, isolated stone column that some interpret as a ceremonial altar or a carved face, though this is highly contested. To the untrained eye, and to many trained ones, it looks for all the world like the plaza of a forgotten citadel, swallowed by the sea thousands of years ago. This powerful first impression fuels the core of the heated debate that surrounds Yonaguni. On one side of the argument are geologists, led by figures like Professor Masaki Kimura from the University of the Ryukyus, who has spent years studying the site. He and his supporters argue vehemently that the monument is a man-made, or at least human-modified, structure. They point to the precise right angles, the parallel sets of grooves that look like tool marks, and the presence of what they claim are quarried stones and a carved relief resembling an animal. Professor Kimura suggests this could be the remnant of a lost civilization, perhaps connected to the legendary continent of Mu, a Pacific equivalent of Atlantis, that sank beneath the waves after a cataclysmic event like a massive earthquake and tsunami around 2,000 years ago. This theory posits that the monument was once on dry land and was submerged as sea levels rose at the end of the last ice age, which would make it over 10,000 years old, radically rewriting the timeline of human civilization in the region. On the opposing side are many mainstream geologists and archaeologists who contend that the Yonaguni monument is a spectacular but entirely natural formation. They argue that the rock is a singular block of sandstone, a sedimentary rock prone to fracturing along natural horizontal and vertical planes. The strong currents in the area, combined with seismic activity, could have exploited these weaknesses, causing large sections to cleave away and create the flat surfaces and sharp angles we see. The apparent steps could be the result of differential erosion, where softer layers of rock wear away faster than harder ones, creating a stepped effect. The proponents of the natural formation theory point to similar, though smaller, sandstone structures found on land in other parts of the world that were formed without any human intervention. They argue that the human brain is hardwired to see patterns and familiar shapes in random forms, a psychological phenomenon known as pareidolia, which is why we see faces in clouds or staircases in rocks. The investigation is severely hampered by the monument's environment. Its location in an area known for powerful currents and frequent shark visits makes prolonged archaeological work difficult and dangerous. The relentless action of the sea also continues to erode the features, potentially obscuring any subtle evidence that might settle the debate. Furthermore, no definitive human artifacts, like pottery, tools, or bones, have been conclusively linked to the structure itself, which is a critical piece of evidence missing from the man-made theory. The Yonaguni monument remains one of the world's most captivating underwater enigmas. It forces us to confront the limits of our perception and the power of nature to create forms that mimic human artistry on a grand scale. Whether it is the ruins of a forgotten world or a masterpiece of geological chance, it stands as a haunting, beautiful reminder of the secrets the ocean still holds, a ghostly silhouette on the seafloor that challenges us to question what we think we know about our own past. Crossing from the aquatic mystery of Yonaguni, we now travel to the sun-baked highlands of southern Africa, to a site whose very existence shattered colonial prejudices and rewrote the history of a continent. This is the Great Zimbabwe Ruins, the largest and most awe-inspiring ancient stone construction in sub-Saharan Africa, surpassed in scale only by the Egyptian pyramids. Rising from a scenic valley, the complex is a breathtaking testament to the ingenuity of a lost African civilization, a city of stone built entirely without mortar. For centuries, its origins were a mystery born not from a lack of evidence, but from a stubborn refusal by European explorers to believe that indigenous Africans were capable of such architectural grandeur. The scale of the ruins is immense, covering nearly 800 hectares and divided into three main areas: the hill complex, the valley complex, and the most magnificent of all, the Great Enclosure. This latter structure is the crown jewel of the site, a vast elliptical wall that soars over 30 feet high in some sections. The craftsmanship of these dry stone walls is a masterpiece of engineering. The granite blocks are carefully shaped and fitted together so precisely that they have remained stable for over 700 years, their graceful, curved walls snaking along the contours of the land. But it is what lies within the Great Enclosure that presents the site's most tantalizing puzzle: a solid, conical tower that stands over 30 feet tall. This tower is not hollow, it is a solid mass of stonework, its base perfectly round and its purpose completely unknown. Why would a civilization expend such effort to build a structure with no interior space? This very question was at the heart of a historical controversy that plagued Great Zimbabwe for generations. When the first European explorers, like the German adventurer Karl Marx, stumbled upon the ruins in the late 19th century, they were confronted with a reality that contradicted their worldview. They could not, or would not, accept that a local African culture had created this sophisticated city. Marx famously attributed its construction to the Queen of Sheba or Phoenician traders, weaving fantastical tales of a biblical or Mediterranean origin. This denial was a form of intellectual theft, an attempt to strip Africa of its rich heritage. It wasn't until the work of archaeologists like David Randall McIver and Gertrude Catton Thompson in the early 20th century that scientific excavation firmly established the truth. The ruins were medieval in origin, built by the ancestors of the local Shona people between the 11th and 15th centuries. With its African origin confirmed, the mystery then shifted to its exact function within the powerful Kingdom of Zimbabwe. The prevailing theory is that it served as a royal palace, the administrative and ceremonial heart of a vast empire that controlled trade routes stretching from the interior all the way to the Swahili coast on the Indian Ocean. Artifacts found at the site, including Arab coins, Chinese porcelain, and Persian glassware, provide clear evidence of its wealth and far-reaching connections, likely built on the trade of gold, ivory, and other precious goods. The hill complex, perched high above, is often interpreted as a sacred ritual center, the domain of a powerful religious leader, while the great enclosure below, with its high walls and secluded spaces, is thought to have been the residence of the king and his numerous wives. The layout suggests a society with a complex social and political hierarchy, yet the enigmatic conical tower resists easy classification. If the Great Enclosure was a royal palace, what was the purpose of this massive, solid stone pillar? Some scholars propose it was a symbolic grain silo, representing the king's role as the provider and protector of his people's food supply, a potent symbol of wealth and stability in an agrarian society. Others suggest it had a religious function, perhaps an altar for offerings to a supreme god, Mweri, or a phallic symbol representing the fertility and continuity of the royal lineage. Another fascinating theory posits that it was an astronomical marker, its shadow or alignment with the walls used to track the seasons for agricultural or ceremonial purposes. The truth is, the tower's meaning is likely a combination of these ideas, a multifaceted symbol of royal power, spiritual belief, and economic prosperity. Its true significance known only to the rulers who walked its courtyards. Great Zimbabwe stands not just as a collection of ruins, but as a powerful declaration of African achievement, a mystery that finally credits its true builders while still guarding the deeper secrets of their sophisticated world. But from the sunken enigma of Yonaguni and the imperial grandeur of Great Zimbabwe, we now journey to a landscape that feels less like a collection of buildings and more like the abandoned workshop of ancient giants. High on the windswept plateaus of northern Laos lies the Zionkhong Plateau, home to one of Southeast Asia's most perplexing archaeological mysteries, the Plain of Jars. Scattered across dozens of sites, thousands of massive stone jars carved from solid rock lie strewn across the grasslands in clusters both large and small. These are not delicate pottery vessels, they are monumental containers, some standing over 3 meters tall and weighing several tons. Their sheer number and scale are staggering, with the largest site containing over 400 of these enigmatic jars. Carbon dating of archaeological materials found around them suggests they were placed here over 2,000 years ago, yet the culture that created them left behind no written records, no grand cities, and no clear explanation for why they invested such immense effort in carving and distributing these silent stone sentinels across the land. The craftsmanship involved is a mystery in itself. The jars were painstakingly quarried from nearby sandstone and granite outcrops, using iron chisels and hammerstones to shape their distinct forms. Most are cylindrical, with a wider base tapering slightly towards the rim, and many were originally fitted with stone lids, some ornately carved with human or animal faces. The logistics of moving these multi-ton jars from the quarries to their final positions across miles of rugged, mountainous terrain is a puzzle that echoes the challenges of Easter Island or Stonehenge. How did this Iron Age society manage such a feat? The most likely theory involves a combination of ropes, wooden rollers, and immense human labor, but the motivation for such a Herculean effort remains the central, haunting question. This question has spawned several compelling theories, each attempting to decipher the purpose of this vast stone jar landscape. The most widely accepted explanation, supported by archaeological evidence uncovered by French archaeologist Madeleine Colony in the 1930s and more recent excavations, is that the jars were funerary urns used in a complex burial practice. Colony found human ashes, bones, and burial goods like beads and ceramics inside and around many of the jars. This suggests a practice where bodies were placed inside the jars to decompose, a process known as excarnation, after which the bones were cleaned and either buried or kept for ancestor worship. The sites, often located on hilltops with panoramic views, would have held significant spiritual meaning as places where the dead were transformed and their spirits released. The jars, then, were not merely containers but sacred vessels facilitating a journey into the afterlife, their immense size perhaps reflecting the status of the deceased or the importance of the ritual. However, other theories challenge this funerary interpretation, proposing more pragmatic functions. Some researchers suggest the jars were massive storage containers for a highly organized society. They could have been used to hold rice, water, or a fermented rice wine known as Lao Lao, which is still a central part of cultural life in Laos today. In this scenario, the jars would have represented community wealth and security, their strategic placement across the plateau marking trade routes or territorial control. Another fascinating hypothesis links them to water collection. The region experiences a distinct monsoon season followed by a dry period. The jars, with their lids in place, could have served as a sophisticated rainwater harvesting system, providing a crucial water supply for travelers, traders, or seasonal inhabitants. This practical explanation would make the Plain of Jars not a cemetery, but a vital piece of public infrastructure. Tragically, resolving this mystery has been profoundly hampered by a much more recent and deadly layer of history. During the Vietnam War, the Zionkhong Plateau became one of the most heavily bombed places on Earth as part of a secret American campaign to disrupt supply lines. Millions of cluster bomblets were dropped, and a significant percentage failed to explode on impact. To this day, vast areas of the Plain of Jars remain contaminated with unexploded ordnance, rendering them inaccessible to archaeologists and lethal to local villagers. This deadly legacy has severely limited scientific exploration. Only a handful of the nearly 100 known jar sites have been safely cleared and studied. The very land that holds the secrets of an ancient civilization is guarded by the lethal remnants of a modern conflict, meaning that the full story of the jars and the people who carved them remains locked within a dangerous and silent field. From the sprawling, sunlit landscape of the Plain of Jars, we now descend into a world of profound darkness and eerie silence, into the very bedrock of the Mediterranean island of Malta. Here, concealed beneath the quiet streets of the town of Paola, lies the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, a subterranean sanctuary so unique that it is the only known prehistoric underground temple in the world. This is not a natural cave system. It is an immense multi-level complex meticulously carved from solid Globigerina limestone, a 3-story labyrinth that descends over 30 feet into the earth. Dating back to an astonishing 4000 BC, the Hypogeum is a masterpiece of Neolithic engineering, a place where the boundary between the world of the living and the realm of the dead becomes impossibly blurred. Discovered by accident in 1902 by construction workers digging cisterns for a new housing development, the true scale of the Hypogeum was only revealed over years of careful excavation. The complex is a mirror of the above-ground megalithic temples found elsewhere on Malta, but inverted, sunk into the ground. It is organized across 3 distinct levels, each serving a potentially different purpose. The upper level feels most like a traditional burial site, with a series of simple, small tombs carved directly into the rock. But as you descend to the middle level, the architecture becomes grander and more sophisticated. This is the heart of the Hypogeum, featuring magnificent, spacious halls with carved stone portals that mimic the temples above, circular chambers known as Holy of Holies, and intricate spirals and patterns painted in red ochre that once adorned the walls, symbols whose meanings are now lost. The lowest level is the most raw and primal, a deep pit that collects water, perhaps symbolizing a connection to an underworld or a source of life. This architectural complexity is matched by a grim reality. The bones of over 7,000 individuals were found within its chambers, leading to its classification as a necropolis, an ancient collective burial site. Yet, the care and artistry invested in the Hypogeum suggest it was far more than just a simple graveyard. The arrangement of the dead was deliberate, and the presence of precious artifacts like figurines, pottery, and intricate beads indicates rituals of great significance. This duality is the central mystery of the Hypogeum. Was it primarily a city of the dead, or was it a sanctuary for the living to commune with their ancestors and deities? The most captivating clue to its purpose lies not in what you see, but in what you hear. Deep within the complex is a small, oval-shaped chamber known as the Oracle Room. This chamber possesses an extraordinary acoustic property. A deep voice, spoken or chanted into a specific niche in the wall, creates a powerful, resonant echo that reverberates throughout the entire room and even penetrates to other parts of the Hypogeum. The sound is not merely loud, it is distorted, amplified, and haunting, seeming to emanate from the very walls themselves. For a prehistoric society, this phenomenon would have been nothing short of magical. It is easy to imagine a shaman or priestess standing in that niche, her voice transformed into an otherworldly proclamation, convincing those gathered that they were hearing the direct voice of a god or an ancestral spirit. This suggests the Hypogeum was an active ritual center, a place of oracular pronouncements where the living could seek guidance from the unseen world, using the sophisticated acoustics as a powerful tool to reinforce spiritual authority. Some researchers have taken this acoustic investigation further, proposing that specific chambers within the Hypogeum are tuned to resonate at a frequency that affects human brain waves, potentially inducing trance-like states in participants. Whether used for sacred chanting, ritual drumming, or oracular speech, the sound engineering of the Hypogeum appears to be as deliberate as its architectural design. This seamless integration of death, architecture, and sound creates a compelling picture of a sophisticated belief system. The hypogeum was likely a multifunctional sacred space, a burial ground that was also a temple, a place where death was not an end but a transformation, and where the living could actively engage with the spiritual realm through powerful, engineered sensory experiences. It stands as a silent, underground cathedral, its purpose encoded not in texts but in the bones of its inhabitants and the haunting echoes that still linger in its dark, ancient halls. While the ancient cultures of Europe and Asia were building with stone on the other side of the world, a different kind of architectural genius was flourishing, one that shaped the very earth itself. Our journey now takes us to the heart of North America, to a site that shatters any lingering misconception about the pre-Columbian world, across the Mississippi River from what is now St. Louis, Missouri, lies the Cahokia Mounds, the remains of the largest and most influential urban settlement north of Mexico. At its peak around 1050 AD, this was a city larger than London was at the same time, a bustling metropolis that was home to as many as 20,000 people. And at its physical and symbolic center stood a structure of such staggering scale that it remains the largest man-made earthen pyramid in the Americas, the colossal Monk's Mound. To stand at the base of Monk's Mound is to confront a monument that defies easy comprehension. It is a massive, four-terraced earthen pyramid, covering over 14 acres at its base and rising 100 feet into the sky. The volume of earth moved to create it is estimated at over 22 million cubic feet, a quantity that would require thousands of workers carrying tens of thousands of baskets of soil, all without the aid of draft animals or wheeled carts. This was not a gradual accumulation of trash and debris. This was a deliberate, generations-long project of architectural and social will. A grand staircase, reconstructed based on archaeological evidence, once led from the vast central plaza up to the summit, a journey that would have been both physically demanding and deeply symbolic for any visitor or participant in the city's rituals. The true mystery of Monk's Mound, and indeed of Cahokia as a whole, lies not in the earthworks themselves but in what they supported. The flat summit plaza, large enough to hold a modern-day football field, was not empty. Historical accounts from later European explorers of similar Mississippian cultures describe substantial buildings atop such mounds, often the residences of powerful chiefs or temples for important deities. It is almost certain that a magnificent structure, perhaps a temple or the chief's residence, stood atop this highest platform, visible from every corner of the city and the surrounding countryside. But what did this building look like? Was it adorned with intricate carvings or painted with symbolic designs? What sacred objects were housed inside? The organic materials, wood, thatch, and woven fabrics have long since vanished, leaving us with only post-hole stains in the earth, a ghostly blueprint of a grandeur we can only imagine. This leads directly to the deeper enigma. What exactly transpired here? The Grand Plaza at the mound's base was the city's vibrant heart, a space capable of holding 10,000 people or more. This was the stage for the ceremonies that bound the society together. Archaeologists have uncovered compelling, if unsettling, evidence of the scale and nature of these events. In a ridgetop mound now known as Mound 72, excavations revealed a gruesome scene. The remains of over 250 people, mostly young women, who appear to have been sacrificed in a single event. They were buried alongside a chief or an important leader, suggesting a practice of retainer sacrifice to accompany powerful individuals into the afterlife. Other finds include ceremonial caches of finely crafted stone tools, arrowheads, and exotic materials like seashells from the Gulf Coast and copper from the Great Lakes. These findings paint a picture of a highly stratified society with a powerful ruling class that wielded both political and religious authority. The ceremonies on and around Monk's Mound were likely elaborate spectacles involving music, dance, and procession, designed to reinforce the social order, celebrate the agricultural cycle, and appease spiritual forces. But the specific stories, the names of the gods, the chants that echoed across the plaza, all of this oral history is lost, leaving us with the silent stage but without the script. This silence only deepens when we confront Cahokia's most profound puzzle, its sudden decline. After centuries of dominance, by the mid-1300s, the city was completely abandoned. The Grand Plaza grew quiet, and the structures atop Monk's Mound were left to decay. Why did a thriving, powerful, and sophisticated civilization simply walk away from its greatest achievement? There is no evidence of a massive invasion or a single catastrophic event. Instead, archaeologists point to a combination of factors that may have led to a slow unraveling. One leading theory points to environmental degradation. Such a large population would have placed immense strain on local resources, leading to deforestation and the overhunting of local game. Another compelling explanation involves climate change. Tree ring data indicates that during the time of Cahokia's decline, the region experienced a period of significant instability, including prolonged droughts that would have devastated the maize-based agriculture that supported the urban population. This could have led to food shortages, social unrest, and a loss of faith in the rulers who were supposed to maintain harmony with the natural world. The people may have simply dispersed back into smaller, more sustainable communities across the Mississippi Valley. Cahokia, therefore, stands as a powerful and poignant mystery, a testament to the ability of ancient Americans to build a metropolis that rivaled any in the world, and a stark reminder of the fragility of even the most complex societies when faced with environmental and social challenges. But from the sprawling earthen pyramids of North America, we now travel to the heart of ancient China, to an emperor's vision of eternity so grand it required an entire military housed in subterranean palaces. While the terracotta army itself is one of the most iconic archaeological discoveries of all time, the sheer architectural ambition of the structures built to contain them presents a mystery that often goes overlooked. The question is not why the army was made. It is widely accepted that these life-sized soldiers, chariots, and horses were created to protect China's first emperor, Qin Shi Huang, in the afterlife. But rather, why go to the extreme of constructing such immense, hangar-like pits to serve as their eternal barracks? The scale of the undertaking is almost industrial. To the east of the emperor's still unexcavated burial mound, archaeologists have uncovered 3 main pits, with a 4th found empty, forming a massive underground complex. Pit number 1, the largest, is simply staggering in its dimensions. It is an underground hall measuring over 200 meters long and 60 meters wide, an area larger than many modern aircraft hangars. The builders did not simply dig a big hole in the ground. They constructed this cavern with remarkable engineering precision. First, they excavated a deep trench, then lined it with immensely thick walls of rammed earth, a technique where damp soil is pounded between wooden forms to create a structure as hard as rock. The floor was paved with gray bricks, and a series of 10 thick, rammed earth partition walls divided the space into long, parallel corridors, but the most sophisticated feature was the roof. Across the top of these walls, massive wooden beams were laid, supporting a ceiling made of mats which were then sealed with layers of clay. This was not a temporary grave. It was designed as a permanent, fortified, and protected structure. This leads us directly to the central architectural puzzle. If the sole purpose was to provide the emperor with an afterlife army, the far simpler solution would have been to craft the figures and then bury them in a single, vast pit, backfilling it with earth. The choice to instead build a coherent, structured building underground, complete with a roof, suggests something much more profound than a simple symbolic offering. It implies a belief that the afterlife was not a static realm, but a dynamic, functional continuation of the earthly one. By housing the army in a built environment, complete with corridors that allowed the soldiers to be arranged in precise battle formations, infantry, chariots, cavalry, all in their tactical positions, the emperor and his planners were creating a fully operational military installation. The roof was critical. It protected the army from being crushed and buried, preserving its readiness. In this belief system, the terracotta warriors were not merely statues. They were expected to come to life, to stand guard, and to actively defend their emperor against any spiritual threats that might emerge in the world to come. The pits were not tombs, they were eternal garrison headquarters. This interpretation is reinforced by the other structures found within the necropolis. The terracotta army was just one part of a vast, meticulously planned underground city that mirrored the emperor's actual capital, Xianyang. Archaeologists have found pits containing terracotta acrobats and strongmen, likely meant to provide eternal entertainment, as well as pits with bronze waterfowl in a simulated garden and a pit with half-size bronze chariots. This was a complete microcosm of an imperial court, frozen in time beneath the earth. The elaborate, roofed pits were therefore essential to this vision. They provided the architectural framework for an active, functioning afterlife society, where every element, from the entertainers to the soldiers, required a proper place to perform their duties for eternity. The terracotta army pits stand as a breathtaking testament to one man's obsessive quest for immortality, revealing an ancient belief so powerful that it demanded not just symbols, but a fully built, operational world waiting in the dark silence beneath the ground. Dotting the green Irish landscape, often standing beside the ruins of an ancient monastery, you will find a uniquely Irish mystery, the Round Towers. These soaring, stone-built sentinels are remarkable for their elegant simplicity and their puzzling design. Built primarily between the 9th and 12th centuries, over 100 of these towers once existed, with around 70 still standing today, some nearly 100 feet tall. They are architectural marvels constructed entirely without mortar, using precisely cut stones that fit together so perfectly the structures have withstood over 1,000 years of Irish weather. But the most intriguing feature is the entrance, a single doorway positioned anywhere from 10 to 20 feet above the ground, accessible only by a ladder that could be pulled up inside. This single detail is the key to the entire mystery surrounding their purpose. The most widely accepted and practical explanation is that these towers served a dual function as both bell towers and places of refuge. During the early medieval period, Ireland was subjected to repeated and brutal Viking raids along its coastlines and riverways. Monasteries, often wealthy with gold, chalices, and illuminated manuscripts, were prime targets. The elevated doorway made perfect strategic sense. In the event of an attack, the monks could rush their most precious relics and themselves into the tower, pull up the ladder, and effectively seal themselves inside a sturdy stone fortress. From the top, they could ring the bell to warn the surrounding community of the impending danger. This theory is compelling and logical, neatly tying the towers to a known, violent chapter in Irish history. The design seems like a direct and intelligent response to a clear and present threat. However, upon closer inspection, this straightforward explanation begins to develop cracks. If the primary purpose was defense, why are the towers so consistently tall and slender? Their great height makes them more susceptible to toppling, and their uniform design across the island suggests a purpose that transcended mere local defense. Furthermore, many of the towers are positioned in locations that were not particularly vulnerable to Viking raids, being far inland. This has led historians and archaeologists to propose more nuanced and perhaps more profound functions. Some suggest the towers were primarily symbolic, acting as immense permanent stone crosses reaching towards the heavens, declaring the power and permanence of the Christian faith in the landscape. Their great height would have made them the most visible structure for miles around, a constant reminder of the monastery's spiritual authority. This symbolic interpretation opens the door to even more fascinating possibilities. A compelling alternative theory posits that the round towers were sophisticated astronomical observatories. The monks of the time were deeply interested in calculating the date of Easter, a computation that required precise knowledge of the solar and lunar cycles. It has been noted that the windows at the top of many towers are not randomly placed. They often align with significant solar events, such as the sunrise on the summer or winter solstice. A beam of light entering through a specific window on these cardinal days would have illuminated a particular spot inside the dark tower, functioning as a massive, accurate calendar. This would transform the towers from simple defensive structures into instruments of high learning and scientific observation, places where faith and reason intersected to map the movements of God's creation. Another layer of mystery involves the tower's potential role as reliquaries on a grand scale. In this theory, the tower itself was not just a hiding place for relics during a raid, but their permanent, sanctified home. The elevated doorway could have served a ritual purpose, separating the sacred space of the tower from the profane ground below. The interior, dark and difficult to access, would have been a perfect environment for housing the most venerated objects of the monastery, their secrecy enhancing their spiritual power. The act of climbing a ladder to enter would have been a powerful metaphor for ascending from the earthly realm to a holier one. Ultimately, the round towers of Ireland likely served all these purposes simultaneously. They were pragmatic defenses, symbolic landmarks, astronomical tools, and sacred treasuries, their simple, elegant form containing a multitude of meanings that resonate with the complex intellectual and spiritual world of early Christian Ireland. Leaving the soaring stone towers of Ireland behind, our journey now takes us to the sun-drenched Mediterranean island of Sardinia, where a different kind of stone giant dominates the rugged landscape. Scattered across the hills and valleys are the enigmatic remnants of the Nuragic civilization, the Nurag. These are not solitary monuments. They number in the thousands, with estimates ranging from 7,000 to over 10,000 structures, creating a unique and breathtaking archaeological tapestry that is found nowhere else on Earth. Built during the Bronze Age, beginning around 1800 BCE, these ancient stone towers are the defining feature of prehistoric Sardinia, a silent yet overwhelming testament to a sophisticated and powerful culture. The architecture of a Nurag is both distinctive and imposing. At its most basic, it is a conical, beehive-shaped tower, constructed using the Cyclopean masonry technique, massive, irregular blocks of stone carefully fitted together without any mortar. The skill involved is remarkable, with the towers often featuring a corbelled vault inside, where each successive layer of stone slightly overlaps the one below, gradually closing to form a domed roof that has proven incredibly durable over millennia. But many Nurag are far more complex than a simple tower. The more elaborate examples, known as complex Nurag, are vast, multi-towered fortresses. Imagine a central keep, the tallest tower, surrounded by a curtain wall connecting several smaller towers, creating a formidable defensive bastion with a central courtyard. Inside, a labyrinth of narrow corridors, spiral staircases carved within the thick walls, and hidden chambers creates a confusing and easily defensible interior space. This very complexity is what fuels the enduring mystery of their primary function. With so many structures dotting the island, each seemingly tailored to its location, it is unlikely they served a single, uniform purpose. The most obvious theory, given their formidable fortress-like appearance, is that they were military strongholds. Their strategic placement on hilltops with commanding views of the surrounding countryside, the thick walls, and the narrow, easily defended entrances all point to a defensive need. In an era of clan rivalries and potential seaborne threats, the Nurag would have provided a secure refuge for the local population and their livestock during times of conflict. The complex Nurag, with their interlocking towers, could have served as the seat of power for a regional chieftain, a visible symbol of his authority and a bastion against his enemies. However, other evidence suggests a role that was more than just martial. The interiors of many Nurak, particularly the central chambers, lack the features you would expect in a permanent dwelling, such as hearths or clear living areas. This has led to the compelling idea that they were primarily the residences of a ruling elite or sacred spaces for communal rituals. Perhaps the chief or priest king lived in the central tower, which functioned as both a home and a temple. The surrounding courtyard could have been a place for social gatherings, trade, and important ceremonies that reinforced the community's social structure. The sheer number of Nurak might then indicate a society organized into many small, independent clan-based territories, each with its own central symbolic tower. Adding another layer to the mystery are the discoveries made in the vicinity of the Nurak. Often located nearby are other sacred sites used by the Nuragic people, most notably the Giants' Graves, which are collective tombs, and the sacred wells, intricate underground structures built to worship water deities. This close association strongly implies a spiritual dimension to the Nurak themselves. They may have been part of a larger sacred landscape, their imposing presence meant to connect the earthly world with the divine. Some researchers have even proposed an astronomical function, noting that the entrances or internal corridors of certain Nurak align with the solstice sun or important stars, much like other ancient megalithic sites. It is highly probable that the Nurak were multifunctional, serving as fortress, palace, temple, and community center all at once. Their role may have evolved over the centuries, from a simple watchtower to the complex heart of a thriving community. The true essence of the Nurak lies in their pervasive presence. They were the absolute center of Nuragic life, the physical and spiritual anchor of a civilization that, for over 1,000 years, expressed its identity in stone, leaving behind a landscape of majestic ruins that guard the secrets of their original, integrated purpose. Now we travel to a much smaller, yet equally perplexing mystery hidden beneath an ordinary English town. In the heart of Hertfordshire, directly beneath the intersection of two ancient Roman roads, lies a secret that was completely lost to the world until a moment of sheer chance in the 1700s. This is the Royston Cave, an entirely man-made, bell-shaped chamber carved out of the soft chalk bedrock. Its discovery reads like something from a storybook. In the year 1742, a workman was digging a hole for a new bench in the local butter market when his shovel suddenly broke through into emptiness. After enlarging the hole, he descended into a space that no living person knew existed, illuminating a chamber whose walls were covered from floor to ceiling in a dense tapestry of mysterious, crudely executed carvings. The cave itself is surprisingly small, only about 5 meters high and roughly 2.5 meters in diameter, creating an intimate, almost claustrophobic atmosphere. But every square inch of its circular wall is a canvas of ancient art. The carvings are a fascinating and bewildering mix of Christian and possibly pagan symbolism. You can make out figures of saints, including what is believed to be Saint Catherine with her wheel and Saint Lawrence holding the gridiron on which he was martyred. There are depictions of the crucifixion, a possible Holy Family, and knights on horseback. Interspersed among these human forms are a host of symbols, crosses of various designs, geometric patterns, shears, and a recurring motif that looks like a cup or chalice. The style is undeniably primitive, giving the impression of being carved not by master artisans, but by individuals with a powerful, urgent need to leave their mark. This very crudeness is central to the cave's enduring mystery because it has made precise dating through artistic analysis incredibly difficult. Without any organic material for carbon dating and no written records mentioning its existence, the carvings are the only clue, and they point in several contradictory directions. This has led to a wide spectrum of theories about the cave's origin and purpose, each more intriguing than the last. One of the earliest and most popular theories connects the cave to the Knights Templar. After the order was suppressed in the early 14th century, Could fleeing Templars have used this hidden chamber as a secret place of worship? Some point to the imagery of knights and the frequent chalice-like symbols, which they interpret as the Holy Grail, a central object in Templar lore. The cave's location at a crossroads of ancient routes might have made it a convenient, hidden meeting point. However, skeptics argue that the carvings lack the sophistication and specific heraldry one would expect from the Templars. A more grounded theory suggests the cave was a hermitage for Augustinian canons from the nearby priory. During the medieval period, it was not uncommon for religious men to seek solitude in such cells, and the overtly Christian iconography would certainly support this. The cave could have served as a private chapel and dwelling for a single hermit, its walls carved over a lifetime of devotion and contemplation. Yet, the sheer density of the carving seems almost frantic for a single individual, and the presence of seemingly pagan symbols alongside the Christian ones raises questions. An even more speculative idea proposes a far older origin, suggesting the cave might be a Neolithic flint mine that was later repurposed and carved by successive generations, its original function lost to time. The mystery is compounded by the complete absence of an entrance tunnel. The only way in or out was the hole through which it was discovered, suggesting the original entrance, if there ever was one at ground level, had been deliberately and thoroughly sealed and forgotten centuries before. Was it filled in to protect its sacred contents or to hide something considered dangerous or heretical? The Royston Cave is a powerful reminder that a mystery doesn't need to be colossal in scale to be profound. It is an enigma in miniature, a silent, subterranean chapel whose whispered prayers are etched in stone, waiting for a key we have yet to find. But from the ancient communal effort of the Nurak, we now turn to a mystery of singular obsession, a monument built not by a civilization but by one man driven by a broken heart. In the humid heat of Homestead, Florida, stands a collection of colossal stone sculptures that seem utterly out of place. This is the Coral Castle, a complex of over 1,100 tons of oolitic limestone, featuring massive walls, towering obelisks, a 9-ton gate that moves with the push of a finger, and furniture carved from solid rock. And every last pound of it was quarried, shaped, and assembled by a single, slight man. A 5-foot-tall, 100-pound Latvian immigrant named Edward Līdzkalnis. The story begins with a personal tragedy that fueled a lifetime of superhuman effort. As a young man in Latvia, Edward was deeply in love with a woman named Agnes Scuffs, whom he affectionately called his Sweet 16. The legend he promoted was that she jilted him just one day before their wedding. Heartbroken, he emigrated to America and, channeling his sorrow into an unimaginable project, vowed to build a magnificent stone castle for the love he had lost. He began his work in Florida City in the 1920s, working almost exclusively at night in complete secrecy. For over 28 years, Līdzkalnis labored alone, refusing to let anyone watch him work. When suburban development began to encroach on his first site, he accomplished another feat that seems impossible. He single-handedly moved the entire Coral Castle, piece by piece, to Homestead, a distance of 10 miles. He did this using only a primitive truck and a system of chains and pulleys, again working under the cover of darkness. The structures he left behind are a catalogue of engineering marvels that continue to baffle physicists and engineers. The most famous is the 9-ton revolving gate. It is a single, massive slab of rock, perfectly balanced on a metal rod and an old truck bearing. It is so exquisitely balanced that a child can open it with a gentle push. For decades, engineers were mystified by how he achieved this perfect pivot point, especially since the gate was not drilled through with perfect cylindrical precision. It was discovered during a repair in the 1980s that Līdzkalnis had simply carved a near-perfect cone on the top and bottom of the stone, which rested on the bearings. The precision required to carve that cone by hand without modern tools is staggering. Beyond the gate, the castle features a 22-ton obelisk, a Polaris telescope perfectly aligned with the North Star, a functioning sundial accurate to within 2 minutes, and a rocking chair carved from a single block of stone that actually rocks. This brings us to the central, burning question that has defined the Coral Castle since Leedskalnin's death in 1951. How did he do it? When curious neighbors occasionally asked, he would only offer cryptic answers, famously stating that he understood the laws of weight and leverage, and more enigmatically, that he knew the secret of how the pyramids were built. He claimed to have discovered how the ancient Egyptians moved massive stone blocks without modern machinery. He left behind a series of pamphlets he wrote himself, but they are filled with his own unique theories on magnetism and electricity, not straightforward instructions. He spoke of seeing beads of light on the stones and understanding that everything was made of individual magnets, a concept that aligns loosely with atomic theory but offers no practical blueprint for moving 20-ton rocks. Theories attempting to explain his methods range from the conventional to the extraordinary. The most grounded explanation suggests Leedskalnin was simply a brilliant, if eccentric, practical engineer. He used a system of block and tackles, tripods, chain hoists, and winches. Photographs from after his death show a complex tripod made of telephone poles with a winch at its apex, which he could have used to lift the stones. Proponents of this theory argue that with a masterful understanding of leverage and pivot points, coupled with immense patience, one man could indeed move enormous weights incrementally. He may have used wooden rollers and ramps, techniques known for millennia. However, this conventional explanation struggles to account for the sheer speed and secrecy of his work. Witnesses reported hearing him sing and whistle while he worked, but never the sounds of metal clanging or machinery straining. How could one man, without heavy equipment, quarry and position multi-ton stones so quickly and quietly? This gap has fueled more speculative ideas. Some suggest he may have discovered a way to negate or drastically reduce gravity, perhaps using acoustic levitation or a lost form of magnetic resonance. Others point to his cryptic writings about magnetism and propose he found a way to manipulate the Earth's magnetic field to make the stones easier to move. The most enduring popular theory, though entirely unproven, is that Leedskalnin had indeed rediscovered an ancient secret, a fundamental principle of physics that allowed the builders of megaliths around the world to handle stone as if it were light as foam. Edward Leedskalnin took his secret to the grave, leaving behind a monument not just to a lost love, but to the enduring power of human determination and the tantalizing possibility that a single individual, armed with forgotten knowledge, could achieve the impossible. Towering over the rugged coastline of northwestern Spain, near the city of A Coruña, stands a monument to endurance that is as remarkable for its continuous service as it is for its shrouded origins. The Tower of Hercules is without a doubt an ancient Roman lighthouse. In fact, it holds the unique distinction of being the oldest Roman lighthouse still in operation anywhere in the world, its beam having guided mariners for nearly 2,000 years. Its function is explicitly clear, a fact celebrated by a Latin inscription on its base dating its construction to the reign of Emperor Trajan in the 2nd century. Yet, to simply call it a Roman lighthouse is to ignore the profound geological and mythological riddle that lies literally at its foundation, a puzzle suggesting this sentinel of the sea is built upon secrets far older than Rome itself. The mystery begins with the very rock upon which the tower stands. Archaeological excavations have revealed that the Romans did not build on virgin soil. Instead, they constructed their magnificent lighthouse atop a much older, pre-existing stone platform. This foundational structure is different in its masonry style and composition, pointing to an origin that predates the Roman conquest of this region of Hispania. The identity of these original builders is the first layer of the enigma. The most compelling candidates are the Phoenicians, the legendary seafaring traders from the eastern Mediterranean who established trading posts along the Iberian coast centuries before the Romans arrived. For a culture whose wealth and survival depended on navigation, constructing a watchtower or a navigational beacon at this prominent headland would have been a logical and valuable undertaking. The Romans, masters of practical engineering, would have simply recognized the strategic genius of the location and built their more sophisticated and taller lighthouse upon the existing foundations, effectively claiming and amplifying a tool left by a previous maritime power. But there is another, even more ancient possibility. The region was also home to Celtic peoples known for their hilltop forts or castros. Could this original structure have been a Celtic watchtower or, more intriguingly, a site of religious significance? This idea bridges the gap between archaeology and the powerful local legend that has swirled around the tower for over a millennium. The myth, as recorded in a medieval text known as the Book of Invasions, tells a story of epic heroism. It says that the giant Gion, a fearsome creature with 3 heads and 3 bodies, terrorized this very land. The legendary hero Hercules, as one of his 12 labors, journeyed here, defeated Gion in a great battle, and buried the giant's head on the spot. To commemorate his victory, Hercules then ordered the construction of a great tower upon the burial site, and he purportedly founded a city nearby, naming it Crunia after the first woman to settle there. This is not just a quaint folktale, it is a foundational myth that links the tower directly to the classical world and imbues it with a sacred, heroic origin. The legend powerfully suggests that long before it was a Roman lighthouse, the site was considered a place of immense mythological importance, a location sanctified by a victory of a godlike hero over chaos. The idea that the Romans built their lighthouse on a pre-existing Celtic or Phoenician structure dedicated to a deity or a heroic event would perfectly explain why this specific location was chosen. It would have been a powerful act of cultural appropriation, layering Roman engineering prowess over a local sacred geography to demonstrate their dominance, both physical and spiritual. The Tower of Hercules, therefore, is an architectural palimpsest, a structure where one civilization has written over the erased text of another. The visible upper portion is an undeniable Roman achievement, a perfectly functional and historically documented marvel. But its hidden foundation is a ghost, a whisper from a much older world. Was it a Phoenician navigational aid, a Celtic holy site, or the legendary tomb of a giant from a story told for generations? The true mystery of the Tower of Hercules is not what it is, but what it was before the Romans ever arrived, a secret buried beneath 2 millennia of stone and legend, its original purpose lost to the very mists of time it was built to pierce. Leaving behind the singular obsession of the coral castle, we now journey to a place where an entire community's story ended in silence, a location so shrouded in legend it has been officially declared the most haunted place in India. Deep within the Aravalli hills of Rajasthan stands the hauntingly beautiful ruin of Bangar Fort. This is not merely a forgotten castle, it is an entire abandoned city frozen in time. Built in the 17th century by Raja Bhagwant Das for his younger son, Madho Singh, the fort complex was once a thriving center of power and commerce. Today, its sprawling ruins of grand palaces, ornate Hindu temples, and a central bazaar stand eerily empty, their crumbling walls whispering a tale of a sudden and complete exodus. The central, chilling mystery of Bangar is not its construction, but its rapid and permanent abandonment shortly after it was built. What force could compel an entire population to leave their homes and never return, leaving a perfectly good city to be reclaimed by the dust and the wind? The official story, the one that draws thousands of brave tourists and paranormal investigators every year, is not one of historical record but of a powerful and dramatic curse. The legend centers on a local ascetic, a powerful holy man named Guru Balu Nath, who meditated on the land where the fort was to be built. The Raja sought his permission to build, and the sage agreed on one condition: the shadow of the fort's palaces must never fall upon his own simple dwelling, for if it did, the city would be destroyed. The Roger agreed and construction began. For a time, all was well, but a subsequent ruler, either out of ambition or arrogance, decided to expand the fort, building the palace to such a height that its shadow eventually encroached upon the sage home. Enraged by this betrayal, Guru Balu Nath pronounced his terrible curse, dooming the city to ruin and ensuring that no soul could ever live there in peace again. A more elaborate version of the tale involves a princess, the beautiful Ratnavati, and a wicked sorcerer named Singhia who tried to enchant her with a love potion. When the princess discovered his plot, she threw the potion onto a boulder, which then rolled down and crushed the sorcerer. With his dying breath, he cursed the entire city of Bangar to oblivion. These legends are so potent that the Archaeological Survey of India has taken the extraordinary step of placing a sign at the fort's entrance prohibiting entry between sunset and sunrise, a tacit acknowledgement of the site's fearful reputation. Visitors report sudden drops in temperature, disembodied voices, and an overwhelming feeling of being watched. The power of this folklore is undeniable, but it inevitably overshadows the more plausible, yet equally fascinating, historical realities that could explain the city's desertion. The fort was built during a period of intense conflict in the region, as the Mughal Empire's power began to wane and local Rajput kingdoms jockeyed for supremacy. A compelling theory suggests that Bangar was sacked and looted during one of these many conflicts, perhaps by the Maratha armies that swept through Rajasthan in the early 18th century. Such an invasion would have devastated the local economy and infrastructure, making it impossible for the inhabitants to return. The ruined state of the buildings could easily be the result of warfare, not a supernatural curse. Another very practical explanation points to environmental catastrophe. The region is arid, and the city's survival depended on a sophisticated system of water catchment and storage. A prolonged and severe drought or a seismic event that disrupted the local water table could have created an irreversible water scarcity. Without a reliable water source, a city of that size simply could not sustain itself, forcing a mass migration to more viable land. Similarly, an outbreak of plague or another devastating epidemic would have spread rapidly through the densely populated fort and town, decimating the population and leaving the survivors with no choice but to flee, believing the place to be unholy or haunted by the disease itself. The curse, in this light, becomes a powerful folk memory, a way for a pre-literate society to explain a tragedy too vast and traumatic to comprehend in mere historical terms. It transforms a probable famine or plague into a story of cosmic justice, of a broken promise to a holy man. Bangar Fort, therefore, stands at the crossroads of history and myth. Its empty streets and silent temples are a canvas upon which we project our fears and our fascination with the unknown. Whether its end came from the sword, a drought, or a sorcerer's dying words, the result is the same. A magnificent city that lives on only in stone and story, a ghostly monument to the fragile line between a thriving community and a permanent echo. While the previous sites were shaped by entire cultures or ancient beliefs, our next destination is the product of a single, tormented individual's obsession, a sprawling monument to grief and superstition that defies all architectural logic. Located in San Jose, California, the Winchester Mystery House stands as one of America's most bizarre and captivating historical oddities. This is not a house in any conventional sense. It is a chaotic, 160-room labyrinth sprawling across 6 acres, a mansion where the very laws of geometry and reason seem to have been suspended. Its most astonishing feature is not its immense size, but the sheer incomprehensibility of its design. Hallways that snake aimlessly only to terminate in blank walls, staircases that climb just a few steps to the ceiling, doors that open onto 2-story drops to the garden below, and windows built into floors. For 38 years, from 1886 until her death in 1922, Construction never ceased, a continuous day and night cacophony of hammers and saws fueled by the vast fortune of the Winchester rifle empire and the profound anxiety of the woman who inherited it. The mastermind behind this architectural nightmare was Sarah Lockwood Pardee Winchester, a woman whose life was marked by profound tragedy. She was well-educated, fluent in multiple languages, and an accomplished musician before marrying William Wirt Winchester, the heir to the repeating rifle fortune. In quick succession, she lost her infant daughter to a childhood disease and then her husband to tuberculosis, leaving her a vastly wealthy widow at a young age, utterly alone in the world. According to the most persistent legend, drowning in grief and perhaps feeling a burden of guilt over the source of her wealth, Sarah sought guidance from a Boston spiritualist. The medium delivered a terrifying prognosis. She was cursed. The spirits of all those who had been killed by the gun that won the West were now haunting her, and they were responsible for the deaths of her family. The medium offered a single, desperate solution. Sarah must move west and continuously build a house for the spirits. If construction ever stopped, she would die. The bizarre architectural features, the doors to nowhere, the staircases to ceilings, were specifically designed to confuse and placate the malevolent ghosts, creating a labyrinth where they would become lost, allowing her to live in peace. This supernatural explanation has become the central legend of the house, a story that perfectly fits its bewildering reality. Walking its halls, you encounter evidence that seems to support the ghost theory at every turn. The obsession with the number 13 is everywhere. Rooms with 13 windows, ceilings with 13 panels, staircases with 13 steps. A beautiful, expensive stained glass window was crafted with 13 colored stones. There are secret passageways within walls, tiny, closet-like rooms, and a peculiar switchback staircase that ascends with 7 turns but only rises about 9 feet, each step just 2 inches high, supposedly to allow frail spirits to climb easily. The sheer waste and irrationality of it all, the millions of dollars poured into a project with no functional purpose, seems to point to a mind gripped by supernatural fear. It is a compelling narrative, turning the mansion into a physical manifestation of a troubled conscience. Yet, many historians and psychologists propose a more human and perhaps more tragic explanation. Sarah Winchester was not an uneducated woman. She was a brilliant, mathematically gifted individual who oversaw every detail of the construction herself, working directly with the carpenters without the need for formal blueprints. Could this immense, endless project have simply been a coping mechanism, a way to fill the unbearable void left by the loss of her husband and child? The constant activity provided a purpose, a reason to get up each morning, and a distraction from her loneliness. The strange design elements might not have been for ghosts, but for her own amusement and intellectual stimulation. She had the wealth to indulge any architectural whim, no matter how impractical. Perhaps the doors to nowhere were simply mistakes that were easier to leave than to fix, or perhaps they were architectural experiments. She was fascinated by modern innovations. The house featured advanced plumbing, steam and forced air heating, and 3 elevators, one of which was a rare horizontal hydraulic piston model. In this light, the Winchester Mystery House becomes less a haunted labyrinth and more the life's work of an eccentric, creative, and deeply sad genius, using her unlimited resources to build a personal world entirely of her own design, a refuge from a reality she could no longer bear. The truth likely lies somewhere in the middle, a complex blend of genuine spiritual belief, profound psychological trauma, and the unique freedom afforded by immense, guilt-ridden wealth. Sarah Winchester never explained her motives to the public, leaving behind only the silent, sprawling testimony of the house itself. It stands not just as a collection of strange rooms, but as a heartbreaking monument to the lengths the human mind will go to find meaning and peace in the face of unimaginable loss, a puzzle whose final piece was buried with its mysterious, reclusive creator. Our journey now takes a sharp turn from ancient enigmas to a modern mystery, a monument that stood for just over 40 years but generated enough controversy to last for centuries. In a quiet field in Elbert County, Georgia, a set of stark gray granite slabs rose from the earth, not as a relic of a forgotten age, but as a deliberate message for a future one. Erected in 1980, the Georgia Guidestones were as enigmatic as any ancient ruin, but their mystery was born not from a lack of records, but from the deliberate secrecy of their creators. This was not a puzzle created by time, it was a puzzle created by design. The monument consisted of 4 massive slabs, each weighing over 20 tons, capped by a heavy granite lintel stone. A central pillar stood slightly shorter, and a stone tablet lay at its base, offering a cryptic explanation. The most striking feature was the message itself, engraved in 8 different modern languages: English, Spanish, Swahili, Hindi, Hebrew, Arabic, Chinese, and Russian on the 4 main stones. These were 10 guidelines or commandments for a future age of reason. The directives were both practical and profoundly provocative, urging humanity to maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature, to guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity, and to unite humanity with a living new language. Other guidelines called for a prudent balance between rights and social duties, and for resolving disputes through a world court. The monument also functioned as a calendar and an astronomical instrument, with slots and holes aligned to track the sun's movement and mark the solstices and equinoxes, connecting its modern message to an ancient tradition of celestial observation. The central and most tantalizing mystery was the identity of the person or group behind it. The entire project was commissioned by a man who identified himself only as R.C. Christian, a name he later confirmed was a pseudonym inspired by the founder of the Rosicrucian order, a secretive esoteric society. He approached the Elberton Granite Finishing Company with a precise set of plans and paid for the project upfront, insisting on absolute anonymity. The local banker who handled the transaction was the only person to have met Mr. Christian face to face, and he took the secret of his true identity to the grave. This deliberate cloak and dagger approach fueled endless speculation about the sponsors. Were they a group of wealthy survivalists preparing for a global collapse, a secretive cabal of intellectuals with a utopian vision, or perhaps a new religious movement aiming to plant the seeds of its philosophy in a very public way? This anonymity allowed the monument's purpose to be interpreted through wildly different lenses. For some, the Guidestones were a noble, if ambitious, blueprint for a sustainable and peaceful post-apocalyptic society. In the shadow of the Cold War, with the threat of nuclear annihilation looming, the guidelines could be seen as a set of rational principles to help rebuild civilization on a more stable foundation. The call for a global language and a world court echoed the ideals of many internationalist movements. Others, however, saw a much darker agenda. The first guideline, suggesting a drastic reduction of the global population from billions to under 500 million, was particularly alarming to conspiracy theorists and Christian fundamentalists. They interpreted the stones as a manifesto for a godless, elitist New World Order, advocating for eugenics and mass depopulation. The monument was frequently vandalized with phrases like "Death to the New World Order," and it became a pilgrimage site for those who saw it as a symbol of a sinister globalist plot. The intense debate surrounding the Guidestones ensured they were never just a quiet curiosity. They were a lightning rod for controversy, a modern-day Rorschach test where people saw their deepest hopes and fears reflected in the polished granite. This tension culminated explosively in the early 21st century. After years of being a target for vandalism, the monument was severely damaged in a bombing in 2008. Then, in 2022, in a move that shocked the world, the entire structure was demolished by the county authorities for safety reasons, just hours after another bombing attempt. The swift destruction felt like something out of a thriller novel, adding a final, dramatic chapter to the Guidestone's brief existence. Their physical form is now gone, but the mystery of R.C. Christian and the unsettling questions raised by his 10 guidelines remain. Were they a warning, a prophecy, or a provocation? The Georgia Guidestones stand as a unique anomaly in the history of mysterious structures, a modern artifact that became an instant relic, a deliberate mystery whose short life was as controversial and enigmatic as the message it carried. Descending from the controversies of a modern monument, we plunge into a world of profound darkness and silence that lies directly beneath one of the world's most vibrant cities. Beneath the elegant boulevards and bustling cafes of Paris exists another city entirely, a shadowy, labyrinthine realm known as the catacombs. While the official ossuary, with its neatly stacked walls of skulls and femurs, is a famous tourist attraction, this represents only a tiny, sanitized fraction of the underground network. The true mystery extends far beyond the bones into a sprawling, unofficial maze of ancient quarries, tunnels, and galleries that stretches for over 200 miles, a hidden continent beneath the City of Light. This is the domain of the cataphiles, urban explorers who navigate this forbidden world, and it is here, in the pitch-black passages far from any public tour, that the catacombs reveal their most profound and puzzling secrets. The origins of this subterranean landscape are geological and practical. Starting in the Roman era, limestone was quarried from deep underground to build the city above, creating a vast honeycomb of tunnels. For centuries, these quarries were largely forgotten until the late 18th century, when collapsing streets prompted a massive engineering project to reinforce the tunnels. It was during this stabilization effort that the idea arose to relocate the overflowing cemeteries of Paris into the underground voids, giving birth to the famous ossuary. But the reinforced tunnels that weren't filled with bones became a separate, hidden world. The mystery is not the existence of these tunnels, but what has been created within them by generations of clandestine visitors. This is not a historical mystery in the ancient sense, but a living, evolving enigma of modern human behavior. Venturing into these unofficial zones is an act of trespass that requires maps guarded like state secrets and a willingness to navigate tight, muddy passages in absolute darkness. Yet the rewards for those who dare are astonishing. The cataphiles have transformed this netherworld into a surreal underground gallery and social space. Explorers have discovered fully furnished rooms, complete with tables, chairs, and electricity siphoned from the city grid above. There are meticulously carved sculptures emerging from the rock walls, including a perfect replica of the famous French fortification, Fort de Brégançon, complete with miniature defensive walls and cannons. Perhaps the most legendary discovery is that of a fully functional underground cinema, complete with a big screen, projector, a collection of seats, and even a popcorn machine. This hidden theater was equipped with a phone line and a heavy-duty electrical system. Who built it? For what audiences were the films shown? Was it a secret gathering for a select few, an artist's installation, or simply an act of pure, whimsical rebellion? The existence of such a complex structure, built piece by piece in total secrecy, points to a level of organization and motivation that transcends simple vandalism. This leads to the central question surrounding these hidden creations. What is their purpose? For the cataphiles, the motivation is a complex blend of art, community, and escape. In a city known for its regulations and surveillance, the catacombs represent one of the last truly ungoverned spaces. Creating a hidden room or an elaborate carving is a form of anonymous artistic expression, a lasting signature in a world where everyone is otherwise unknown. These spaces also serve as clandestine meeting points away from the prying eyes of the world above. They can be venues for secret parties, intimate concerts, or simply quiet places for philosophical discussion among a small group of friends. In a society that is increasingly connected and documented, the catacombs offer the rare gifts of anonymity and disconnection. The purpose of the cinema, the carved fort, and the furnished lounges is not to be found by the public. Their value lies in their very secrecy, in the act of creation for a private, initiated community. However, a darker, more pragmatic theory also exists for some of the more sophisticated installations. The sheer complexity of wiring a cinema or securing a hidden chamber has led to speculation that some spaces are used for more than just recreation. Law enforcement agencies have long suspected that the deeper, more inaccessible parts of the network are used for illegal activities, from storing stolen goods to hosting underground gambling rings. The same secrecy that protects the artist also shields the criminal. The catacombs become a perfect neutral territory for transactions meant to leave no trace. This duality is at the heart of the mystery. A single discovered room could be a peaceful artist's retreat, a party den for students, or a hideout for something far more sinister, and with the builders remaining anonymous, its true original purpose may never be known. The Paris catacombs are a unique mystery because they are not a relic of a single, forgotten culture, but a living archive of clandestine human activity. Each hidden room and intricate carving is a message in a bottle from an anonymous author, a testament to the enduring human desire to create, to congregate, and to claim a secret piece of the world, even if it must be forged in the enduring darkness beneath the feet of an unsuspecting city. And now we arrive at our final destination, a place that pushes the very limits of our understanding of ancient technology and stands as a fitting conclusion to our journey through the world's greatest architectural mysteries. High on the desolate Bolivian Altiplano, at an altitude of nearly 13,000 feet, lie the ruins of Puma Punku, part of the larger Tiwanaku complex. Unlike the grand pyramids or towering walls we have explored, the mystery of Puma Punku is not one of scale, but of mind-boggling, almost impossible precision. This is not a site of colossal, rough-hewn blocks. It is a landscape of shattered perfection, a collection of stone pieces so finely engineered that they have confounded every expert who has studied them for over a century. To walk among its ruins is to look upon the components of a giant prehistoric puzzle, one for which the instruction manual has been irrevocably lost. The first thing that strikes you is the sheer chaos. Puma Punku, which means door of the puma, appears as a field of scattered rubble, as if some cataclysmic force, a massive earthquake or perhaps even an ancient explosion, swept through and shattered a magnificent structure into countless fragments. But upon closer inspection, this apparent chaos reveals an underlying order of breathtaking sophistication. The site is dominated by massive, H-shaped blocks crafted from andesite, an exceptionally hard volcanic rock akin to granite. These are not simple slabs, they are intricate architectural components, each weighing many tons. Alongside them are smaller, equally perplexing pieces made of even harder diorite. What is truly staggering is the condition of these stones. Their surfaces are not weathered and rough. They are flawlessly smooth, with edges so sharp and precise they look as if they were cut by a modern industrial machine. This leads us directly to the heart of the Puma Punku enigma, the machining. The stonework here is unlike anything else in the ancient world. The most famous features are the complex, interlocking grooves and channels cut into the faces of the H-blocks. These are not shallow scratches, they are perfectly straight, millimeter-precise cuts that run in parallel lines across the incredibly hard stone. They feature crisp, right-angled corners and uniform depths that would be difficult to achieve even with today's computer-controlled milling machines. Even more astonishing are the drill holes found in some stones. They are perfectly cylindrical, with no sign of the wobble or tapering you would expect from a handheld drill. It appears as if a core drill, a tool that removes a cylinder of material, was used with immense, steady pressure. The question is not just how this was done, but with what. The Tiwanaku culture, which flourished between 500 and 1000 AD, is believed to have had only stone hammers and bronze tools. both of which are utterly incapable of achieving this level of precision on such resilient materials. A bronze chisel would shatter against andesite long before it could make a single, clean cut. This gap between the observable evidence and the presumed technological capabilities of the time has fueled some of the most speculative theories in all of archaeology. The most straightforward explanation is that the Tiwanaku possessed advanced, lost knowledge of stoneworking, perhaps involving the use of specialized abrasive sands, diamond-tipped tools, or a technique we simply cannot conceive of today. They may have had access to a plant-based acid that could soften the stone for a time, allowing them to work it more easily. Yet, these theories struggle to account for the machine-like regularity of the cuts. This has led to the more controversial yet persistent ancient astronaut hypothesis. Proponents argue that the precision is so advanced that it must be the work of extraterrestrial visitors or a highly advanced precursor civilization like Atlantis, whose technology was later lost. They point to the site's alignment with celestial bodies and the local legends that speak of gods who built the complex in a single night. While mainstream science dismisses this as pseudoscience, the theory's popularity underscores just how perplexing the physical evidence truly is. But the mystery extends beyond the how to the what. What was Puma Punku when it was intact? Archaeologists generally agree it was a temple complex or a grand ceremonial platform, likely the most sacred part of the Tiwanaku city. The interlocking grooves and complex channels are not merely decorative, they are clearly functional. The prevailing theory is that they were used to hold massive, precisely fitted stone clamps, often made of bronze or copper, which locked the enormous blocks together without the need for mortar. This technique would have made the structure incredibly resilient to the frequent earthquakes that shake the region. Some researchers have attempted to reverse engineer the scattered pieces, suggesting that Puma Punku was a single, multi-level pyramid or platform, a terraced structure that may have been decorated with metal plaques that shimmered in the high-altitude sun. Its purpose was likely to demonstrate the power and divine connection of the Tiwanaku elite to the thousands of pilgrims who would have gathered here. The ultimate tragedy of Puma Punku, and perhaps the source of its enduring mystery, is its state of destruction. The site was not slowly abandoned and reclaimed by nature, it was violently and suddenly destroyed. The stones are not simply fallen, they are pulverized, thrown great distances, and scattered as if by an unimaginable force. The most likely culprit is a massive seismic event, so powerful it could have liquefied the ground beneath the foundation, shaking the perfectly fitted stones apart with catastrophic violence. This destruction was so complete that it erased not only the building itself, but also any clear understanding of its final form and the full extent of the technological genius required to build it. Puma Punku therefore stands as the ultimate cold case. It presents us with the forensic evidence of an advanced technological process, but the tools, the methods, and the architects have vanished. It is a haunting reminder that the past may hold secrets far more sophisticated than we have ever dared to imagine, leaving us with only the silent, perfectly cut stones as a challenge to our own assumptions about the journey of human innovation. And so our journey reaches its end, a voyage that has spanned continents and crossed millennia, from the sun-scorched plains of Turkey to the submerged secrets of Japan, from the heart of an ancient American metropolis to the silent, algorithmic precision of a modern monument. We have stood before structures built by hunter-gatherers, by pharaohs, by grieving widows, and by anonymous visionaries. The sheer diversity is staggering. Tombs designed to capture the sun, fortresses built to disappear underground, and lighthouses standing upon the legends of giants. Each site, in its own unique way, represents a crack in the foundation of our historical understanding, a question that has outlasted empires and defied the most brilliant minds. Yet, for all their differences in form and function, these 25 enigmas are bound by a single, powerful common thread: the profound, unshakable human drive to create, to build, and to leave an indelible mark upon the world. It is an impulse that transcends practical necessity. The people of Göbekli Tepe did not need a temple to survive, nor did the Inca need walls fitted with such impossible precision for mere defense. Edward Leedskalnin did not need a castle of coral, and Sarah Winchester certainly did not need a house with doors to nowhere. These projects speak to something deeper, a yearning for meaning, for legacy, for connection with the divine, or perhaps simply a defiant declaration that we were here. They are monuments to the human spirit's refusal to be ephemeral, even when the original meaning of that effort is swallowed by the centuries. This, perhaps, is the most haunting and beautiful lesson these silent sentinels offer. They remind us that history is not a neat, completed book but a fragmented manuscript with crucial pages missing. Our understanding of the past is built on inference, on fragments of evidence, and on our own interpretations. The true purpose of Stonehenge, the exact method behind Puma Punku's cuts, the final words of the curse at Bangor Fort, these are stories we may never fully recover. And in a way, that mystery is a gift. It invites us to wonder, to question, and to engage actively with the past rather than simply accepting a fixed narrative. These buildings are not dead ruins, they are active conversations across time, challenging us to listen more closely. Now we turn the conversation over to you. After this expedition through the world's greatest architectural puzzles, which one captured your imagination the most? Does the primal mystery of Göbekli Tepe, a temple that predates everything we thought we knew about civilization, stir your curiosity? Or are you drawn to the heartbreaking personal saga etched into the coral walls of Leedskalnin's castle? Perhaps the eerie, engineered silence of the Hal Saflieni Hypogeum, with its ghostly acoustics, leaves you with more questions than answers. We want to hear your thoughts, your own theories, and which of these 25 mysteries you would most want to see solved. Share your picks and your passion in the comments below. Let's continue this exploration together. If these journeys into the unknown have sparked your curiosity, be sure to subscribe to the channel. There are countless more mysteries waiting just beyond the edge of the map, lost cities to uncover and ancient codes yet to be cracked. This is not a farewell but merely a pause. Until our next adventure, keep wondering.